Hi everyone, it's John. I wanted to come to you today with a review of a book that I read earlier this spring and that I just loved completely and totally and unreservedly. And there's not many chances that I can come to you and actually talk about a book like that. So before too much more time passed, I wanted to have the opportunity to tell you about it. And it is this book, Thoreau, A Life, by Laura Dassow, published by the University of Chicago. It came out in 2017, and which just happens to be the bicentennial anniversary of its subject's birth, and was completely unaware of its existence until someone recommended that we read it together. And I think that was Peg who initially recommended it. It might have been Sharon. I'll tell you about who I read it with at the end of the video and have a few words to say about all of them. But I wanted to give some of my thoughts and commentary about the book before I talked about the reading experience. The reading experience was almost certainly part of the pleasure that I had with reading the book. But I don't know whether or not this book by Laura Dassow was specifically intended to be published in the bicentennial year of Thoreau's birth, and I think it was. But if it was, there could be few gifts so wonderful to be given for your 200th birthday, even if you're not here to enjoy them. Should anyone's memory last beyond their death, I think you could hardly ask for a more dedicated or curious or interested biographer than Walls. In just 500 pages, you manage to see the transformation of Thoreau from someone who's often stereotyped as sort of this woolly, pie in the sky kind of nature lover to, maybe even a bit of a misanthrope, into a fuller, more accurate picture of a man who was able to balance his inward life with vital social changes that were occurring around him, and even be able to see him as a burgeoning scientist, an engaged scientist whose interests and studies of nature were deeply rooted in the ultimate concern for people that he had and the environment that we all share. Henry David Thoreau was actually born David Henry Thoreau, and the inversion of his first and middle names was taken on in early adulthood. And he was born into a family of a free-thinking mother and a father who eventually made their living as one of the first great pencil manufacturers in New England. If you're ever at trivia night and you want to know how the Thoreau family made their living, it wasn't by writing, it was by pencil manufacturing. Thoreau went off to Harvard when he was barely 16 and graduated 4 years later, and refused to pay the fee for a diploma upon graduation. He said, "Let every sheep keep its own skin," referring to the common practice, of course, of making diplomas of animal skin vellum. That same year, he founded the Concord Academy with his brother John. Its teaching philosophy eschewed rote memorization and instead tried to ignite the love of students' innate curiosity and love of learning. 5 years later, John developed tetanus while he cut himself while he was shaving and developed tetanus and died in his brother's arms. After Harvard, Henry worked intermittently as a surveyor, publishing several articles on his excursions, which we still consider today to be some of the first examples of what we call nature writing. In the weeks leading up to his 28th birthday, he built the 10-foot by 15-foot one-room cabin where he would live. On July 4th, 1845, a date one can't help but imagine he chose because of its symbolism, he humbly began his Walden journal. He wrote, "Yesterday I came here to live." He would remain there for precisely 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. Despite the picture that we often get of Thoreau as a distant and aloof man, he would often talk to his neighbors. When he wanted company, he would leave a chair outside of his cabin to invite visitors to sit down and talk to him, and he went home once a week to have dinner with his family. During this time, he would take notes and record observations about nature, the people around him, that eventually coalesced into the book that we know today as Walden Pond, which wouldn't be published until 1854. After his stay at Walden, he repurposed his journals into an encyclopedic set of notebooks that cataloged nearly everything about the natural world around him, detailing everything from Darwin's new idea of natural selection to the natural lure of concord. In another work by this same author, Walls, a book called Seeing New Worlds, Henry David Thoreau and 19th Century Natural Science, Walls argues that Thoreau's contributions were not just those of a curious neophyte or observer, but were actually the observations of a serious and committed scientist. But to really get to the heart of the book, if you're interested in Thoreau or the transcendentalist sort of zeitgeist, I guess, to live fully, to live deliberately, to immerse ourselves in every moment, is really the clarion command at the heart of Walden. And especially in the journals, and the books, too. To take nothing for granted, as Tennyson once put it, to live life full to the lees, is what he exhorts us all to do. Walls' biography is a call to live that life, even if just to a tiny extent. To live a life that's a little bit more like Thoreau's was. This book has inspired me to try to take small steps in that direction, and I review it in the faint hope that it will encourage others to follow along in a lifelong project of self-betterment and an increasing sense of appreciation for everything that surrounds us. But before I wrap up the review, I want to take the opportunity to mention the 3 wonderful people that I had a chance to read and share this book with. They helped me create my own little proverbial 10 by 15 foot reading room. The 3 people I'm talking about were Hannah from Hannah's Books, who I've mentioned a couple of times on this channel, I think. Peg from the History Shelf, whom I've mentioned dozens of times, and Sharon from Sharon Goforth, whom I've also mentioned several times. Not only did I have tremendous fun and pleasure learning and sharing in their insights as we traded Voxer messages back and forth, but each one of them gave me new angles and perspectives with which to look at and wrestle with Thoreau and his ideas. These 3 fellow readers and these 3 women allowed me, if I can steal the words of Thoreau himself, to live deep and suck the marrow out of life with their careful insights and thoughtful reading, and thereby made my own reading of that book, this wonderful book, that much more magical. Thank you, ladies. I very much enjoyed getting to read this with you. And I'm sorry the review is so late. But better late than never. And if you are interested in 19th century Americana, Thoreau, the Transcendentalists, just the feel of the age, this is a wholehearted recommendation. Thoreau, A Life by Laura Dassow Walls. I'll see everyone next week.